Hello students, this is Instructor Glenn and I'm here today for a lecture on Unit 2. In Unit 2, the material comes direct from our text, which is the Introduction to Sociology by William Little. Unit 2 consists of 3 chapters out of the text, which are Chapter 3, Chapter 5, and Chapter 6. Culture, Socialization, and Groups. So without ado, let's go ahead and get started on Chapter 3. So what is culture? Though society and culture are often used interchangeably, they have completely different meanings. A society is a group of people sharing a community and a culture. A culture generally describes the shared behaviors and beliefs of these people, and it includes several things like material and non-material elements. So, what are the elements of culture, you say? A culture consists of many elements, such as values and beliefs of its society. Culture is also governed by norms, including laws, mores, and folkways. The symbols and language of a society are key to developing and conveying culture. Pop culture, subculture, and cultural change. Sociologists recognize high culture and popular culture within societies. The societies also comprise many subcultures, which are smaller groups that share an identity. Countercultures, on the other hand, reject mainstream values and create their own cultural rules and norms. Through invention or discovery, cultures evolve by way of new ideas and new ways of thinking. In many modern cultures, the cornerstone of innovation is technology. The rapid growth of technology can lead to cultural lag. Technology is also responsible for the spread of both material and non-material culture that contributes to globalization. There are 3 major theoretical approaches towards the interpretation of culture. A functional perspective acknowledges that there are many parts of culture that work together as a system to fulfill society's needs. Functionalists view culture as a reflection of society's values. An interactionist is primarily interested in culture as experienced in the daily interactions between individuals and the symbols that make up a culture. Critical sociologists see culture as inherently unequal, based on factors such as gender, class, race, and age. Various cultural and sociological occurrences can be explained by these theories. However, no one right view through which to understand there is no one right view through which to understand culture. Let's move on to chapter 5. Chapter 5, socialization. Psychological theories of self-development have been broadened by sociologists who explicitly study the role of society and social interaction in self-development. Charles Cooley and George Mead both contributed significantly to the sociological understanding of the development of self. Lawrence Kohlberg and Carol Gilligan developed their ideas further, researching how our sense of morality develops. Gilligan added the dimension of gender differences to Kohlberg's theory. So why does all this matter? Socialization is important because it helps uphold societies and cultures. It is also a key in individual development. Research demonstrates that who we are is affected by both nature, which is our genetic and hormonal makeup, and nurture, which is the social development in which we're raised. Sociology is most concerned with the way that society's influence affects our behavior patterns, made clear by the way behavior varies across class and gender. Our direct interactions with social groups like peers and families teach us how others expect us to behave. Likewise, a society's formal and informal institutions socialize its populations, such as schools, workplaces, and the media, communicate and reinforce cultural norms and values. So, socialization is a lifelong process, recurring as we enter new phases of life, such as adulthood or old age. Resocialization is a process that removes the socialization that developed over time and replaces it with newly learned rules and roles because it involves removing old habits that have been built up and then replacing them with new ones. Resocialization can be stressful and difficult process. Okay, so let's move on to chapter 6. Chapter 6. How is society possible? Okay, so George Simmel argues that there's no such thing as society as such, because society is nothing except the ongoing interaction between individuals at any particular moment. Nevertheless, the forms of interaction can be analyzed independently of the contents of interaction. Whether micro, meso, or macro level of analysis, the whole is more than the sum of its parts. So, groups. Groups largely define how we think of ourselves. There's two main types of groups, primary and secondary. As the name suggests, the primary group is a long-term complex one. People use groups as standards of comparison to define themselves as both who they are and who they're not. Sometimes groups can be used to exclude people or as a tool that strengthens prejudice. The size and dynamic of a group greatly affects how members act. Primary groups rarely have formal leaders, although there can be informal leadership. Groups generally are considered large when there are too many members for a simultaneous discussion. In secondary groups, there are two types of leadership functions, with expressive leaders focused on emotional health and wellness, and instrumental leaders more focused on results. Furthermore, there are different leadership styles: democratic, authoritarian leaders, and laissez faire leaders. Within a group, conformity is the extent to which people want to go along with the norm. The number of experiments have illustrated how strong the drive to conform can be. It's worth considering real life examples of how conformity and obedience can lead people to ethically and morally suspect acts. Social networks are collections of people that are tied together with specific configuration of connections. The structure and function of the connections determine what the network is capable of and how it influences its members. Formal organizations. Large organizations fall into three main groups: normative or voluntary, coercive, and utilitarian. We live in a time of contradiction. While the pace of change and technology are requiring people to be more nimble and less bureaucratic in their thinking, large bureaucracies like hospitals, schools, and governments are more hampered than ever by their organizational format. At the same time, the past few decades have seen development of a trend to bureaucratize and conventionalize local institutions. Increasingly, main streets across the country resemble each other. Instead of a Bob's Coffee Shop and Jane's Hair Salon, there's a Dunkin' Donuts and Supercuts. This trend has been referred to as the McDonaldization of society. So, everybody, y'all work on your assignments. I hope you understood all this stuff. If you have any questions, just drop me an email or a message, and I'll be right back with you. See you later on. Good luck.